You are listening to the Stop Binge Eating podcast with Kirsten Sarfty, episode number 338. Welcome to the Stop Binge Eating podcast. It's time for you to end your food obsession and begin feeling confident and in control around food. You are absolutely capable of eliminating binge eating from your life, and I'm going to show you how by giving you simple tools and insights that you can apply in your own life. I'm your host, Kirsten Sarfty. Now let's get to it. Hello, let's talk about being problem-focused and solution-focused. When we have a problem, we can be problem-focused or solution-focused. And what this means is that we're either analyzing the problem that we're facing, we're looking at what's wrong, we're understanding the problem, or we're coming up with a solution, figuring out how to solve the problem, and are strategizing. So basically, you're thinking about the problem you're facing, or you're thinking about a solution for the problem. And both are useful, both have a purpose. But when we spend too much time in either of them, we can create another problem on top of the problem we already have. So I'm going to talk about how each of them are useful and how too much time in either, instead of balancing the two, can stop you from solving the problem and possibly create another problem for you. Starting with being problem-focused. Being problem-focused can be helpful in two ways. One, it can help you to just vent your thoughts and feelings, get them out, and be heard, even if it's only you hearing it. There is for sure a time and place for venting, and it can feel good to vent, and it can feel good to just release your thoughts out of your brain, either onto paper or verbally. And two, being problem-focused can help you to understand why you feel how you feel, understand what you're thinking, what your opinion is as it relates to this problem, what your perspective is, and understand why the problem exists. When you're focusing on the problem and you're really trying to understand the problem, you get clarity. And if you're going to solve the problem, if you're going to move on from it, you need to have clarity and understanding of the problem. When I'm coaching, this is the first thing I do with my group members. They share their thoughts and feelings with me. I ask them questions to dig a little deeper, and we get a clear picture of what their problem is and why it is a problem. It is so important that you clearly understand the problem, why it's a problem, and what is really causing the problem before you can figure out a strategy that will actually solve the problem. Because if you don't, and you just jump right into trying to solve the problem without really understanding the problem, your strategies and solutions might not work. This was exactly what I did for all those years I was binge eating. I just kept jumping to trying to figure out solutions. I didn't spend much time understanding the problem. Those times when I would be Googling, I bet I searched for how to stop binge eating a lot more than I searched for why I binge ate. I just wanted to solve it. I just wanted to stop it. I wanted to know what to do. But because I didn't have a clear understanding of why I binged, the strategies I came up with didn't help long term. I didn't really know what the problem was. And in my defense, and this is true for so many of you who have been binging for decades, back then there wasn't a lot of information about binge eating. So it makes sense that I didn't understand it. And it makes sense that the strategies I tried didn't really work. I just kept trying to control what I was eating by setting calorie goals and making foods off limits and making food rules about what I would allow myself to eat and when. But I wasn't doing the necessary work in my mind, which is where the work needs to be done. But I didn't know that because I didn't understand the problem was in what I was thinking about the food, about my body, about my emotions, and about myself. And since I didn't know that the problem was really a thought problem, I didn't focus the work on my thoughts. Like I said, I focused mostly on calorie goals and food rules, which usually exacerbated the problem. So when I say that spending too much time in either being problem or solution focused can create a new problem, what I just talked about a moment ago is an example of being much more solution focused than problem focused. Because I was spending more time on the solution without really understanding the problem, I kept implementing strategies that perpetuated the problem, which caused me to deal with my binge eating problem for longer. And it also caused so much frustration and at times hopelessness. And the solutions I came up with weren't really working. When I'm coaching people, they sometimes fall into this too. They tell me what the problem is and right away ask me for a solution. They just want to get to the how. But if we haven't gotten a clear understanding of the problem, I have us spend more time talking about the problem. Then once we do, it becomes so much more clear what the solution is. That's really such a huge benefit from taking time to understand the problem and dig into it and explore your thoughts and feelings and get below the surface. When you can see the problem clearly, the solution is much more clear. For example, you might see yourself binge on the foods that you usually binge on and think the problem is those foods. So your solution is to take away those foods and make those foods off limits. But that is going to most likely put you into the restrict binge cycle. You don't allow what you want, so you want them more, and your desire for them builds until you're urging for them, and you end up going from forcing yourself to not eat them to letting go and eating excessive amounts, not only because you've been holding yourself back for so long, you're like a slingshot, but maybe also because you're not going to allow yourself again. So you want to eat as much as you can while you can. The solution may have made sense given the perceived problem, but the solution didn't work because the food isn't really the problem. The problem is really your thoughts about the food and possibly also your thoughts about your body and about yourself. And when you can see that, then you can see that working on your thoughts will be a much more effective solution. So make sure you're spending enough time focusing on the problem so that you really understand it. However, it's important that you don't spend too much time being problem focused, which is another problem people fall into. You know you're spending too much time there if you're ruminating, dwelling, or are experiencing uncomfortable negative emotions for an extended period of time. You just keep thinking about the problem, keep going over it in your mind, keep replaying it, and maybe you even keep beating yourself up about it or blaming yourself or getting down on yourself. This is, of course, not at all useful. It's, of course, not going to help you move forward. It is going to keep you stuck in the problem. You're just swirling and spiraling in the problem. And it can lead you to feel hopeless, like there is no way out of it. You only see what's wrong, and you aren't seeing what you can do about it. And part of the problem here is that if you do try to see what you can do about it, your immediate response might be, I don't know, or nothing. But do not settle for those answers. There is something you can do. You may not be able to control everything and everyone in every circumstance, and you may not be able to make big changes right here in this moment, but there is something you can do to help this problem. And when you acknowledge that there is something you can do to help yourself with this problem, you are opening yourself up to the possibility that there is something. Even if you don't know what it is right now, you're opening yourself up to exploring what it could be. Open yourself up to ideas. This is what I do with my group members when they have no idea what to do. We take a moment to examine the problem and brainstorm about what they can do, what they could do, what might help. And when we shift from focusing on the problem to focusing on finding solutions, most of the time, they come up with something that they didn't even think of when they were only focused on the problem. And if they really can't think of anything, they're at least open to hearing suggestions that I have. Sometimes when we're so problem focused, we just reject any suggestions. I know I've for sure been there just thinking about why it won't work. But when I really open myself up to the possibility that it might, I can receive it and actually try it. This happened recently with one of my group members who was feeling really defeated and hopeless and was focusing on all the reasons why she thinks she can't stop binge eating, why it's just not possible for her, and all the patterns she keeps repeating and not changing. She and I spent some time understanding why she keeps repeating the patterns without changing and why she hasn't stopped binge eating yet, getting to the real reasons, not the reasons she kept dwelling on, like that she's just a lost cause and she can only do well for a few days max. And one of the main things we learned was that her perfectionism and all or nothing thinking was one of the main problems. And after figuring it out, we shifted into solution focus, addressing the real problem she's been facing. And now she's working on allowing imperfection, being okay with good enough, and she's making amazing progress and changes. I walked her through a different approach for being problem focused. So instead of just dwelling and feeling discouraged, She was able to understand herself and the problem, and I helped her shift into being solution focused so she could actually make progress. You can find a solution if you understand the problem and actually are open to finding the solution. And when you balance your focus between being problem focused and being solution focused, you will find the right solution, the one that will work. And then you can get to work on it. And if it doesn't work, if the solution you come up with doesn't work, you just repeat the process. You examine why it didn't work. So you understand the problem with either the solution you came up with or the problem with your execution of the solution. And you come up with a new strategy for implementing or a new solution. There is a solution for your problem. And sometimes it may not be the most comfortable solution or the easiest solution or the fastest solution. But if it's one that addresses the real problem you're facing, accept it as a solution and go all in with it. All right. Make sure you're balancing your time in being problem focused and being solution focused so you can actually solve your problem. And I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Stop Binge Eating podcast. If you like what you heard today and you want more, go to coachker.com/free. That's COACHKIR.com/free to get some awesome free stuff to help you stop binge eating.